The dust from the auction wagon settled on Main Street like a death shroud, and Emma Hartwell knew she was watching her brother sacrifice everything he had ever worked for to save her dying farm. The September sun beat down mercilessly on Cedar Ridge, Texas, in the year 1882, turning the wooden boardwalks into hot griddles and making the air shimmer with waves of heat that distorted the crowd gathering around the auctioneer's platform. Emma stood at the edge of the crowd, her calico dress already damp with perspiration, her wheat-colored hair escaping from its pins to stick to her neck. She had tried to stop Thomas this morning, had begged him not to go through with this madness, but her brother had simply kissed her forehead and told her that family was worth more than land. The auctioneer, a portly man named Silas Creed with a voice that could carry across 3 counties, climbed onto the platform and cleared his throat. The crowd pressed closer, a mixture of ranchers, merchants, and drifters, all sensing opportunity in another man's desperation. Emma's eyes burned with unshed tears as she watched Thomas stand beside the platform, his jaw set with determination, his hands clenched at his sides. At 28 years old, her brother had spent the last decade building up his ranch, the Broken Arrow, into one of the finest properties in the county. 500 acres of good grazing land, a sturdy ranch house, a barn that could shelter 50 head of cattle, and water rights to Cottonwood Creek that ran year-round. All of it about to be sold because Emma's husband had been a fool and a gambler. 6 months ago, Emma's world had shattered in the space of a single afternoon. She had returned from town to find Michael Hartwell, her husband of 3 years, slumped over their kitchen table with a bullet hole in his temple, and a note explaining that he had gambled away not just their savings, but had taken out loans against their farm using forged documents that made it appear Emma had co-signed. The bank had come calling within the week, demanding payment of $8,000, an astronomical sum that might as well have been $1 million. Michael had been charming and handsome, but beneath that exterior had been a weak man who could not resist the lure of poker tables and whiskey. Emma had been 24 when they married, full of hope and dreams of building a life together on the 200 acres her parents had left her. Now, at 27, she was a widow drowning in debt she had never agreed to, fighting to keep the only home she had ever known. The bank had given her until October 1st to pay, or they would foreclose and take everything. Thomas had exhausted every option trying to help her, had gone to every bank in 3 counties looking for a loan, had even ridden to Austin to speak with investors. Nothing had worked. The economy was tight, money was scarce, and nobody wanted to take a risk on a widow's farm. So Thomas had decided to auction his ranch, to turn his land and his dreams into cash that could pay Emma's debts and save her farm. "Ladies and gentlemen," Silas Creed bellowed, his voice silencing the murmur of the crowd, "we are here today to auction the Broken Arrow Ranch, 500 acres of prime Texas land, complete with buildings, livestock, and water rights. The starting bid is $6,000. Emma felt her stomach twist. $6,000 would not be enough. After the bank took their $8,000, there would barely be anything left for Thomas to start over. He would be left with nothing, completely ruined, all because of her dead husband's debts. "$6,000, called out a rancher Emma recognized as Bill Thornton, a man who already owned half the county and apparently wanted more. $6,500, came another voice. Emma scanned the crowd, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. She had to be strong. Thomas was doing this for her. The least she could do was witness his sacrifice without falling apart. But God, it hurt. It hurt worse than Michael's betrayal, worse than finding him dead, worse than anything she had ever experienced. Thomas was her only family, the brother who had protected her since they were children, who had taught her to ride and shoot and survive in this harsh land. Now he was giving up everything for her. $7,000, Thornton called, his voice confident. The bidding continued, climbing slowly as various ranchers and speculators threw out numbers. Emma noticed a stranger standing at the back of the crowd, a tall man in worn denim and a black hat pulled low over his eyes. He had not bid yet, but there was something about the way he stood, perfectly still and focused, that drew her attention. He was lean and muscular, with broad shoulders and the sun-weathered skin of a man who spent his life outdoors. A gun belt hung at his hip, the holster well-worn but clean, the mark of a man who knew how to use his weapon but was not looking for trouble. $8,000, the stranger's voice rang out, deep and clear. The crowd turned to look at him, a ripple of surprise moving through the gathering. Thornton's face reddened with irritation. He did not like being challenged, especially by someone he did not recognize. 8,500, Thornton countered, his jaw tight. The stranger stepped forward, moving through the crowd with an easy confidence that made people instinctively step aside. As he came closer, Emma could see his face more clearly. He was younger than she had initially thought, probably around 30, with strong features and eyes the color of storm clouds. A thin scar ran along his left cheekbone, giving him a dangerous edge, but his expression was calm and measured. 9,000, the stranger said, his gaze fixed on the auctioneer. Thornton sputtered, clearly not expecting to be outbid so aggressively. 9,500. $10,000, the stranger said without hesitation. A gasp went through the crowd. 10,000 was more than the ranch was worth, more than any sensible buyer would pay. Thornton opened his mouth, then closed it again, his face now purple with frustration. He shook his head and stepped back, withdrawing from the bidding. The auctioneer looked around the crowd, waiting to see if anyone else would bid, but the price had climbed too high. $10,000 was a fortune. Going once, Sela's Creed called out. Going twice, sold to the gentleman for $10,000. Emma felt her knees go weak with relief. 10,000 would cover the debt and leave Thomas with 2,000 to start over. It was not enough to buy another ranch, but it was something. She watched as Thomas shook hands with the auctioneer and then walked over to speak with the stranger. They talked for a few minutes, their voices too low for Emma to hear, and then the stranger handed Thomas a leather satchel. Thomas opened it, checked the contents, and nodded. Money changed hands, papers were signed, and just like that, the Broken Arrow Ranch belonged to someone else. The crowd began to disperse, people heading back to their businesses and homes, the excitement over. Emma walked toward Thomas, her legs feeling unsteady beneath her. Her brother saw her coming and met her halfway, pulling her into a tight embrace. "It is done," he said quietly, his voice rough with emotion. "You are saved, Emma. The farm is yours to keep." "But you lost everything," Emma whispered against his chest. "Thomas, I cannot bear this. You worked so hard." "Land can be earned again," Thomas said, pulling back to look at her. "Family cannot be replaced. You are my sister, Emma. I would do this 1,000 times over to keep you safe." Before Emma could respond, the stranger approached them, his hat now pushed back to reveal thick dark hair and those striking gray eyes. Up close, he was even more imposing, easily over 6 feet tall, with a presence that commanded attention without demanding it. "Ma'am," he said, nodding to Emma before turning to Thomas. "I want to make sure we are clear on the terms. You and your hands have until the end of the month to clear your personal belongings and move the livestock you are keeping." Thomas nodded. "I understand. I appreciate the extra time. Most buyers would want immediate possession." "I am in no rush," the stranger said. His eyes flicked to Emma again, and she felt an odd flutter in her chest. There was something in his gaze, a curiosity mixed with what might have been sympathy. "If I may ask, why was the ranch being sold?" Thomas hesitated, clearly debating how much to share with this stranger who now owned his property. Finally, he said, "My sister's husband passed away 6 months ago and left her with substantial debts. The bank was going to foreclose on her farm. This was the only way to raise the money fast enough." The stranger's expression shifted, something unreadable crossing his face. He looked at Emma again, this time with more intensity. "I am sorry for your loss, ma'am. Emma found her voice, though it came out softer than she intended. "Thank you. And thank you for bidding fairly. My brother worked hard on that land. I hope you will treat it well." "I intend to," the stranger said. Then, after a pause, he added, "My name is Cole Matheson. I have been working ranches up north for the past 10 years, saving my wages. I have been looking for land to buy for a while now. This seemed like the right opportunity." "Thomas Brennan," her brother said, extending his hand again. "And this is my sister, Emma Hartwell." Cole shook Thomas's hand, then turned to Emma and touched the brim of his hat in a respectful gesture. "Mrs. Hartwell." There was an awkward moment of silence, and then Thomas cleared his throat. "Well, Mr. Matheson, if you need any information about the property, the livestock, or the water rights, I am happy to help with the transition." "I would appreciate that," Cole said. "Perhaps we could meet tomorrow at the ranch. I would like to go over everything in detail." "Tomorrow morning," Thomas agreed. "Say around 8. That works," Cole said. He nodded to both of them and then walked away, his long stride carrying him down the street toward the saloon. Emma watched him go, her mind spinning with confusion and relief and a strange sense of awareness she could not quite name. "Well," she finally said, "at least he seems decent." "Decent enough to pay $2,000 more than the ranch was worth," Thomas said quietly. "I wonder why he did that." Emma wondered the same thing. But right now, all that mattered was that the debt would be paid, her farm would be saved, and Thomas would have something left to rebuild his life. She linked her arm through her brother's, and they walked together down Main Street toward the bank, where Thomas would make the payment that would free Emma from the shadow of Michael's mistakes. The next morning dawned clear and hot, promising another scorching day. Emma woke early in her small farmhouse, the place that had been her childhood home and was now solely hers again, thanks to Thomas's sacrifice. She made coffee over the wood stove and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she had found Michael dead, though she tried not to think about that. The ghosts of the past 6 months hung heavy in this house, but she was determined to build new memories, better ones, to fill the rooms with life instead of grief and anger. She had insisted on riding out to the Broken Arrow with Thomas this morning. She wanted to thank Cole Matheson properly for his purchase, and perhaps more importantly, she wanted to see her brother's ranch one last time before it truly belonged to someone else. Thomas had tried to talk her out of it, saying there was no need, but Emma had been firm. She owed Cole Matheson her gratitude, and she would deliver it in person. They rode out just after dawn, the air still relatively cool, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. The Broken Arrow was about an hour's ride from Emma's farm, across rolling hills covered in prairie grass and mesquite. Emma had always loved this land, the wild beauty of it, the sense of endless space and possibility. Texas was harsh and unforgiving, but it was also magnificent in its own way. When they arrived at the ranch, Cole was already up and working. They found him in the barn, examining the structure and making notes in a small leather journal. He had shed his shirt in the growing heat, and Emma caught a glimpse of a muscular back crisscrossed with old scars before she quickly averted her eyes, feeling her cheeks heat with embarrassment. Cole heard their horses and turned, grabbing his shirt and pulling it on quickly. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough from sleep. "You are early. Rancher's hours," Thomas said with a slight smile. "Old habits. My sister insisted on coming along. She wanted to thank you personally." Cole's gray eyes settled on Emma, and she felt that strange flutter again, the one that had caught her off guard yesterday. She dismounted from her mare, smoothing her divided riding skirt, and walked toward him. "Mr. Matheson," she said, keeping her voice steady, "I wanted to express my gratitude for what you have done. Because you paid such a generous price, my brother will have enough left over to start again. You have saved 2 families with your purchase, not just one." Cole studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said, "Mrs. Hartwell, would you mind walking with me for a moment? There is something I need to discuss with you." Emma glanced at Thomas, who shrugged, looking as puzzled as she felt. "Of course," she said. Cole led her out of the barn and toward the ranch house, a sturdy two-story structure that Thomas had built with his own hands over the course of 3 years. They walked in silence for a moment, and Emma found herself acutely aware of Cole's presence beside her, the way he moved with a quiet confidence, the subtle scent of leather and sage that clung to him. When they reached the porch, Cole stopped and turned to face her. He pulled a folded document from his pocket and held it out to her. "This is for you." Emma took the document, confused. She unfolded it carefully and felt the world tilt beneath her feet as she read the words written there. It was a deed. A deed to her farm, the 200 acres that had been mortgaged to pay Michael's debts. But the mortgage had been paid in full, and the property was now listed as belonging solely to Emma Hartwell, free and clear of all encumbrances. "I do not understand," Emma whispered, her hands trembling as she held the paper. "How did you get this?" "I went to the bank after the auction yesterday," Cole said quietly. "I paid off your mortgage. The farm is yours, free and clear. No debt, no threat of foreclosure. You own it outright." Emma stared at him, her mind refusing to process what he was saying. "But why? Why would you do that? You do not even know me." Cole was silent for a moment, his gray eyes searching her face. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and sincere. "Because I know what it is like to lose everything through no fault of your own. Because I could see yesterday how much it was tearing you apart to watch your brother sacrifice his dreams for you, and because I had the means to help, so I did." "But the money," Emma protested, still reeling. $8,000 plus the $10,000 for the ranch. That is $18,000. That is a fortune." "It is my fortune to spend as I see fit," Cole said simply. "I have been working and saving for 12 years, Mrs. Hartwell. I started as a horse wrangler when I was 18 and worked my way up to foreman of one of the biggest ranches in Montana. I lived lean, saved every penny, and invested wisely. I have been looking for the right property to buy, and when I heard about your brother's auction, I saw an opportunity to help someone who needed it." Emma felt tears spilling down her cheeks before she could stop them. "But you do not know us. We are strangers to you." "That does not mean I cannot help," Cole said gently. "Look, I know this is overwhelming, but the deed is yours. Your farm is safe, and there is more." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I want to give your brother his ranch back." Emma's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the porch steps. "What?" Cole sat down beside her, keeping a respectful distance but close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him in the morning sun. "I bought the Broken Arrow to help your brother, Mrs. Hartwell. I do not need 500 acres. I planned to buy a smaller spread, something I could manage on my own. But when I heard about the auction, about why your brother was selling, I knew I had to do something. So I bid high enough to ensure he would have money left over. But the truth is, this ranch belongs to him. He built it with his own hands and his own sweat. It would be wrong for me to take that from him." "So you are just going to give it back?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. $18,000, and you are just going to give it all away?" "Not give it away," Cole corrected. "I am going to give your brother back his ranch free and clear, but I am hoping he will let me work here as a partner. I have experience, I have skills, and I have money to invest in improving the operation. We could build something really good together. But if he says no, if he wants me to leave, then I will sign the deed back to him and ride on. No strings attached." Emma turned to look at him, really look at him, studying the planes of his face, the honesty in his eyes, the set of his shoulders. "Who are you?" she asked softly. "Why would you do something like this?" Cole smiled, a small, sad expression that did not quite reach his eyes. "I told you, I know what it is like to lose everything. My family had a small ranch in Missouri when I was growing up. My father was a good man, a hard worker, but he got sick when I was 16. We could not afford a doctor, and we lost him within a month. My mother tried to keep the ranch going, but without my father, she could not manage. The bank foreclosed, and we lost everything. My mother died a year later, and I have always believed it was from a broken heart. I was 17 years old, alone in the world with nothing but the clothes on my back and my father's horse. I swore then that if I ever had the means to help someone in a similar situation, I would do it. So here I am, keeping that promise." Emma felt her heart crack open with compassion for this stranger who had endured so much pain, and yet had chosen to use his success to help others. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand over his where it rested on his knee. Cole looked down at their joined hands, then back up at her face, and something passed between them, an understanding, a connection that went deeper than words. "You are a remarkable man, Cole Matheson," Emma said quietly. "I am just a man trying to do right by people who deserve better than they have gotten," Cole replied. "Now, shall we go tell your brother the news? I imagine he is probably wondering what we are talking about out here." They stood and walked back to the barn together, and Emma realized she was still holding the deed to her farm clutched in her hand. When they entered the barn, Thomas looked up from where he was showing Cole's horse, his expression questioning. "Thomas," Emma said, her voice shaking with emotion, "Mr. Matheson has done something incredible." She held up the deed. "He paid off the mortgage on my farm. It is mine, free and clear." Thomas's eyes widened. "What? But how? And there is more," Cole interrupted, stepping forward. He pulled another document from his pocket and handed it to Thomas. "This is the deed to the Broken Arrow. I am signing it back over to you, free and clear of debt. The ranch is yours again." Thomas stared at the paper in his hand like it might bite him. "I do not understand. Why would you do this?" Cole explained again what he had told Emma about his past, about his promise to help others if he ever had the means. Thomas listened in stunned silence, and when Cole finished, the older man's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I cannot accept this," Thomas said, his voice rough. "It is too much. You have already done more than anyone could ever expect." "You can accept it, and you will," Cole said firmly, "but I have a condition. I want to work here as your partner. I know ranching, I have money to invest in improvements, and I have ideas that could make this place even more successful. We split the profits 50-50, we make decisions together, and we build something good. What do you say?" Thomas looked at his sister, then back at Cole. Emma could see the conflict in her brother's eyes, the struggle between pride and practicality, between disbelief and desperate hope. Finally, he extended his hand to Cole. "Partner," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "but only if you let me pay you back over time. I will not be a charity case." "Fair enough," Cole agreed, shaking Thomas's hand firmly. "We can work out the details, but for now, let us just say we are both invested in making this ranch succeed." Emma watched the two men shake hands, sealing their agreement, and felt a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly brought her to her knees. In the span of 24 hours, her entire world had shifted. She had gone from facing certain ruin to owning her farm free and clear. Thomas had gone from losing everything to regaining his ranch and gaining a partner who could help him build it into something even better. And all because of a stranger with a kind heart and a promise to help others. As the morning wore on, the three of them walked the property together, with Thomas pointing out various features and improvements while Cole listened intently and asked thoughtful questions. Emma found herself lingering, not quite ready to leave, drawn by something she could not quite name. She watched Cole as he examined the irrigation system Thomas had built, noting the way his hands moved with sure competence, the way he listened carefully before offering suggestions. There was a gentleness to him beneath the rugged exterior, a kindness that showed in the way he spoke to Thomas with respect, never making her brother feel small or obligated despite the massive gift he had just given. Around midday, they returned to the ranch house and Emma insisted on making lunch for the men. It felt natural somehow, being in the kitchen of the house her brother had built, cooking for him and for the man who had saved them both. She found supplies in the larder and made a simple meal of beans, cornbread, and coffee. They ate together at the big wooden table, and the conversation flowed easily, moving from ranching to weather to the growing tensions in the territory. I heard there have been some rustler problems in the area, Cole mentioned. Lost about 50 head last month according to what I heard in town. Thomas nodded grimly. It is getting worse. There is a gang operating out of the hills to the west. They hit small ranches mostly, places that do not have enough hands to keep watch all night. The sheriff has not been able to catch them. Maybe with 2 of us here now we can set up better patrols, Cole suggested. Keep a closer eye on the herd. They talked through various security measures, and Emma found herself impressed by Cole's knowledge and strategic thinking. He was clearly a man who had earned his position through skill and intelligence, not just luck. As she cleaned up after the meal, she caught herself watching him again, noticing the way the afternoon light from the window highlighted the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when he smiled. She mentally shook herself. What was she doing? She had been a widow for only 6 months. It was far too soon to be noticing another man, especially in that way. Besides, Cole had helped her out of kindness, nothing more. He had shown no indication that he saw her as anything other than his partner's sister, someone to be helped and then left alone. Still, as the afternoon stretched on and Emma prepared to ride back to her farm, she felt an odd reluctance to leave. Cole walked her to her horse, and as he helped her mount, his hand on her elbow sent a jolt of awareness through her that she could not deny. "Thank you," she said again, looking down at him from her saddle. "I do not think I will ever be able to properly express what you have done for us." "No thanks needed," Cole said, stepping back. "Just be happy, Mrs. Hartwell. Build a good life on that farm of yours. That is all the thanks I need." As Emma rode home, the deed to her property safely tucked in her saddlebag, she found her thoughts returning again and again to storm-gray eyes and a gentle voice that had offered her salvation without asking for anything in return. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Emma threw herself into working her farm, determined to prove that Cole's faith in her had not been misplaced. The 200 acres that had been her parents' legacy were mostly planted in wheat and corn, with a small orchard of peach trees and a vegetable garden near the house. She had 2 hired hands, young men named Jake and Sam, who had stayed on even during the darkest days of debt. And together they worked from dawn to dusk, preparing for the spring planting. Emma visited the Broken Arrow regularly, sometimes to consult with Thomas about shared equipment or to borrow tools, but often simply because she found herself drawn there. She told herself it was natural to want to spend time with her brother, especially now that he was building something good again. But she could not deny that her heart beat a little faster whenever she saw Cole working in the fields or mending fence or breaking one of the new horses they had purchased. Cole had seamlessly integrated himself into the ranch operations, and Emma could see the positive changes his presence brought. He and Thomas worked together like they had been partners for years rather than weeks, their skills complementing each other perfectly. Cole brought new techniques he had learned up north, while Thomas contributed his deep knowledge of the local land and climate. The ranch was thriving in ways it never had before. What surprised Emma most, though, was how often she found Cole at her farm. He seemed to find reasons to ride over, sometimes bringing news from town, sometimes offering to help with repairs that were too big for her and her hands to manage alone. He fixed the broken gate on her corral, replaced rotting boards on her barn, and helped Jake and Sam clear a new field for planting. He did all of this without being asked, showing up in the early morning or late afternoon with tools and a quiet determination to be helpful. At first, Emma protested, saying he had already done more than enough and did not need to spend his free time working on her property. But Cole just smiled and said he liked staying busy, and besides, they were neighbors now, and neighbors helped each other. So Emma stopped protesting, and instead found herself looking forward to his visits, to the sound of his voice calling out a greeting as he rode up, to the sight of him working alongside her hands with easy competence. They talked while they worked, Conversations that ranged from the mundane details of farming to deeper discussions about life and loss and hope. Emma found herself sharing things she had never told anyone, not even Thomas, about her marriage to Michael, about the loneliness she had felt even before he died, about the dreams she had harbored as a girl that had slowly withered under the weight of disappointment. Cole listened without judgment, his gray eyes steady and understanding. In turn, he shared more about his own past, about the years of wandering after his mother's death, about the hard work and determination it had taken to rise from a penniless teenager to a successful ranch foreman. He spoke of the loneliness of always being on someone else's land, always working to build another man's dream while his own remained distant and unrealized. "That is why I wanted my own place so badly," he told her one afternoon as they sat on her porch, taking a break from repairing her chicken coop. "I wanted something that was mine, something I could build and shape and be proud of. I wanted roots." "And now you have them," Emma said, handing him a glass of cool water from the well. "You and Thomas are building something good at the Broken Arrow." "We are," Cole agreed. He took a long drink, then set the glass down and looked at her. "But if I am being honest, I did not expect this." "Expect what?" Emma asked. "You," Cole said simply. "I did not expect you." Emma's breath caught in her throat. The air between them suddenly felt charged, heavy with unspoken words and feelings that had been building for weeks. She knew she should look away, should change the subject, should do anything to break the moment. But she could not. She was caught in his gaze, drawn by the intensity she saw there, by the vulnerability and hope and something that looked very much like longing. "Cole," she whispered, not sure what she was asking for, what she was offering. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingertips lingered against her cheek for just a moment, warm and rough and tender all at once. "I know it is too soon," he said quietly. "I know you are still grieving, still healing. But Emma, I need you to know that when I see you, when I talk to you, when I am near you, I feel something I have never felt before. Like maybe all those years of wandering and working and saving were leading me here to this place, to this moment, to you." Emma felt tears sting her eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. "I was not grieving Michael," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not really. I was angry at him, yes, hurt by what he did, but I did not love him the way a wife should love a husband. I do not think I ever did. I married him because I was lonely and he was charming and I thought maybe that would be enough, but it was not. And when he died, I felt guilty because all I could feel was relief that it was over, that I would not have to keep pretending anymore." Cole's hand moved to cup her cheek fully now, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. "You do not have to pretend with me, Emma. You never have to pretend with me." "I do not want to," Emma said, leaning into his touch. "Cole, I feel it too. Whatever this is between us, I feel it. And it terrifies me because it is so soon and people will talk, and I do not know if I can trust my own judgment after making such a terrible mistake with Michael." "Then we take it slow," Cole said, his voice steady and sure. "We do not have to rush anything. We just let this unfold naturally in its own time. I am not going anywhere, Emma. I have finally found my home, and it is not just the land. It is you." The kiss, when it came, was gentle and sweet and full of promise. Cole's lips were warm against hers, his touch reverent, like she was something precious and fragile that he was afraid of breaking. Emma felt something inside her chest unfurl, like a flower that had been closed tight finally opening to the sun. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling, faces flushed, eyes bright. "Well," Emma said a little breathlessly, "I suppose that happened." Cole laughed, a rich, warm sound that Emma realized she loved. "I suppose it did, and I am not sorry about it." "Neither am I," Emma admitted. From that day forward, their relationship deepened and grew. They were careful to be discreet, mindful of Emma's reputation and the fact that her widowhood was still relatively recent. But they found ways to spend time together, always with the excuse of work or neighborly assistance. though both of them knew it was far more than that. Cole courted her in small, thoughtful ways. He brought her wildflowers he picked on his rides across the range. He showed up with fresh meat when he went hunting, always saying he had shot more than he and Thomas could use. He fixed things around her farm before they broke, anticipating problems and solving them before they became serious. He made her laugh with stories of his adventures up north, and he listened with genuine interest when she talked about her plans for the farm, her hopes for the future. Thomas noticed, of course. Her brother was not blind, but rather than being upset or protective, he seemed pleased, even relieved. He pulled Emma aside one day and told her that he could not think of a better man for his sister than Cole Matheson, a man who had proven his character through actions rather than words, a man who had given everything to save strangers without expecting anything in return. "He is a good man, Emma," Thomas said. "Maybe the best man I have ever known. If you care for him, do not let fear or propriety keep you from happiness. Life is too short, and second chances are too rare." As autumn deepened into winter, Emma felt herself falling more deeply in love with Cole. It was different from anything she had experienced with Michael. What she felt for Cole was not based on surface charm or loneliness or the desire to fill an empty space in her life. It was built on mutual respect and shared values and genuine compatibility. Cole challenged her intellectually, supported her dreams, and made her feel valued not despite her strength and independence but because of them. They stole moments together whenever they could. Sometimes it was sitting on her porch in the evenings, talking while the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. Sometimes it was riding together across the range, their horses side by side, the endless Texas landscape stretching out before them. Sometimes it was working together on some project, their hands brushing as they passed tools, their eyes meeting and holding with unspoken understanding. In December, Cole asked her to go with him to the Christmas dance in Cedar Ridge. It would be their first public appearance as a couple, a statement to the town that they were courting seriously. Emma hesitated, worried about gossip and judgment, but Cole took her hand and reminded her that they had nothing to be ashamed of. They were two adults who cared for each other, and anyone who wanted to judge them for finding happiness could mind their own business. The night of the dance, Cole arrived at Emma's farm in a borrowed buggy, cleaned up and wearing his best clothes. Emma had made herself a new dress from fabric she had bought in town, a deep blue that brought out the color of her eyes. When Cole saw her, his expression made her feel beautiful in a way she never had before. "You take my breath away," he said simply, offering her his hand to help her into the buggy. The dance was held in the town hall, decorated with pine boughs and candles, filled with music from a fiddle band and the laughter of people enjoying themselves. When they entered, Emma felt eyes turn toward them, felt the whispers start. But Cole kept his hand firmly on her lower back, his presence solid and supportive beside her, and gradually Emma stopped caring what anyone else thought. She was happy, truly happy, for the first time in years. Why should she apologize for that? They danced together, Cole's hand warm on her waist, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization to the music. Emma felt like she was floating, lost in the gray depths of Cole's eyes, in the feeling of being held close to him, in the rightness of being in his arms. When the night ended and Cole drove her home, he walked her to her door and kissed her goodnight, longer and deeper than he had before. Emma clung to him, her heart racing, her body aching with wanting more but knowing they had to wait, had to do things properly. "Marry me," Cole whispered against her lips. "I know we have not been courting long, but Emma, I love you. I have loved you since the moment I saw you standing in that crowd, watching your brother sacrifice everything for you. I want to spend my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to build a life together, build a family. Say yes. Please say yes." Emma pulled back just enough to look into his face to see the love and hope shining there. Her heart felt so full she thought it might burst. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, Cole, I will marry you. I love you so much it scares me sometimes. But I trust you, and I want everything you just described. I want all of it with you. Cole swept her up in his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing like children. When he set her down, he kissed her again, a kiss full of joy and promise and the certainty of a future built together. They were married in the spring, on a perfect April day when the wildflowers were blooming across the prairie, and the sky was impossibly blue. The ceremony was small, held at the little church in Cedar Ridge, with Thomas standing as Cole's best man and Emma's friend Sarah serving as her matron of honor. Emma wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, with wildflowers in her hair that Cole had picked that morning. Cole wore his best suit, looking handsome and nervous and so full of love that Emma felt her heart overflow. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and Cole kissed her in front of their gathered friends and neighbors, Emma felt like her life was finally beginning. All the pain and disappointment of the past had led her here, to this moment, to this man who had saved her farm and stolen her heart. They held the reception at the Broken Arrow, with tables set up outside under the spring sunshine, food and drink flowing freely, music and dancing and celebration lasting well into the evening. Thomas gave a toast that had everyone laughing and then crying, talking about how Cole had come into their lives like an answered prayer, saving his ranch and giving his sister the happiness she deserved. To Cole and Emma, Thomas said, raising his glass. May your love be as enduring as this Texas land, and may your happiness be as boundless as the sky above. As the sun set and the party continued around them, Cole led Emma away from the crowd, out to the porch where they had first talked about the future. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind, and they stood together looking out at the land that now belonged to them both. Happy, Cole murmured against her hair. Happier than I ever thought possible, Emma answered honestly, leaning back against his solid warmth. Good, Cole said, because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you stay that way. They had decided to live on Emma's farm, at least initially. The farmhouse had been her childhood home, and she was attached to it in ways that went beyond mere property. Cole understood, and besides, it made sense for them to live on the smaller property while Thomas continued to manage the day-to-day operations of the Broken Arrow. They would still work as partners, still share the profits and the decisions, but this arrangement gave both families their own space while keeping them close enough to support each other. Cole brought his few possessions over the day after the wedding, and Emma helped him unpack. It was strange and wonderful to see his things mixed with hers, his clothes hanging next to her dresses in the wardrobe, his shaving kit on the washstand, his boots by the door. The house that had felt so empty and haunted by bad memories suddenly felt alive again, filled with hope and love and the promise of new beginnings. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a revelation for Emma who had never known that physical intimacy could be like this. Cole was patient and gentle, paying attention to her needs and responses, making her feel cherished and desired in ways Michael never had. When they finally came together, it felt like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place, two souls uniting into one. Afterward, as they lay tangled together in the darkness, Cole's fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder, Emma felt tears slip down her cheeks. "What is wrong?" Cole asked, immediately concerned. "Did I hurt you?" "No," Emma said, laughing softly through her tears. "No, you did not hurt me. I am crying because I am happy. Because I did not know it could be like this. I did not know love could feel like this." Cole pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Neither did I," he admitted. "I have been with women before, Emma. I am not going to lie about that. But this, what we just shared, that was not just physical. That was something else entirely. That was making love in the truest sense, and it is something I want to do every day for the rest of our lives." "That sounds like a good plan," Emma murmured, already feeling drowsy and content in his arms. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Emma's life. She and Cole settled into married life with an ease that surprised them both. They worked the farm together, making improvements and expanding the operations. Cole brought in cattle to graze on the portions of land not suited for crops, diversifying their income streams. Emma expanded her vegetable garden and started selling produce in town, building a reputation for quality that brought in steady customers. At the Broken Arrow, Thomas and Cole continued to build the ranch into one of the most successful operations in the county. They acquired more land, purchased better breeding stock, and implemented new techniques that increased both efficiency and profitability. Thomas seemed happier than Emma had seen him in years, fulfilled by the work and the partnership with Cole. That summer, Emma realized she was pregnant. She had suspected for a few weeks, but she waited to be sure before telling Cole. When she finally shared the news with him one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, his reaction was everything she could have hoped for. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight, his voice rough with emotion as he thanked her for giving him something he had never dared to dream he might have, a family of his own. "I am going to be a father," he kept saying, wonder in his voice. "We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Emma asked, though she could see the answer in his face. "Happy does not even begin to cover it," Cole said, placing his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Emma, you have given me everything. A home, a purpose, a love I never thought I would find, and now a child. How did I get so lucky?" "We both got lucky," Emma corrected, covering his hand with hers. "We found each other." The pregnancy was not easy. Emma suffered from terrible morning sickness for the first few months, and as she grew larger, the Texas heat made her uncomfortable and tired. But Cole was attentive and supportive, taking on more of the physical farm work himself, hiring additional help when needed, making sure Emma rested and stayed healthy. He fussed over her like a mother hen, which Emma found both annoying and endearing. Thomas was thrilled at the prospect of becoming an uncle and started building a cradle in his spare time, crafting it from oak with meticulous care. When he presented it to them in late autumn, Emma cried at the beauty of it, at the love evident in every carefully sanded curve and joint. As winter approached, Emma grew huge and uncomfortable, eager to meet the baby who was taking up so much space inside her. Cole barely let her out of his sight, worried something would go wrong. On a cold January night in 1884, Emma went into labor. The midwife was summoned, and Thomas paced the porch outside while Cole stayed with Emma, holding her hand and whispering encouragement as she struggled through hours of pain. When their son finally entered the world just after dawn, squalling and red-faced and absolutely perfect, Emma saw tears streaming down Cole's face. The midwife cleaned the baby and placed him in Emma's arms, and as she looked down at the tiny life they had created, Emma felt a love so fierce and overwhelming it took her breath away. "He is perfect," Cole whispered, running a gentle finger over the baby's downy head. "You are amazing. You did so well." They named him James after Cole's father and Thomas for his uncle. Little James Matheson was doted on by everyone who met him. Thomas visited almost every day, bringing gifts and offering to hold the baby so Emma could rest. Cole was a natural father, patient and gentle with his son, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor with James when he fussed at night, singing to him in a surprisingly good voice. Watching Cole with their son, Emma fell in love with her husband all over again. He was everything she had never known she needed. Strong but gentle, confident but humble, passionate but patient. He was a true partner in every sense, sharing the work and the joys and the challenges of building a life together. As James grew from infant to toddler, the farm continued to thrive. Emma's reputation for quality produce expanded, and she started supplying several restaurants and hotels in nearby towns. Cole's cattle operation grew as well, and between the two income streams, they were able to save money and make improvements to the property. They added on to the house, building an extra bedroom and expanding the kitchen. They installed a new well closer to the house and built a proper bunkhouse for their hired hands. The Broken Arrow was also flourishing. Thomas and Cole had become as close as brothers, their partnership seamless and productive. Thomas had started courting a widow from town, a kind woman named Margaret who fit into their extended family perfectly. When Thomas and Margaret married in the spring of 1885, it was Emma's turn to host the reception, a joyful celebration that lasted all day and into the night. That summer, Emma discovered she was pregnant again. James was not yet 2 years old, but she and Cole were delighted at the prospect of another child. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and in March of 1886, they welcomed a daughter into the world. They named her Rose after Emma's mother, and Cole spoiled her shamelessly from the moment she was born. "I am outnumbered now," he would joke, holding Rose while James climbed on his lap. "3 against 1, I do not stand a chance." But Emma could see how happy he was, how complete their family made him feel. This man who had spent his youth alone and rootless now had a wife who loved him, 2 beautiful children, a successful farm, a partnership with her brother, and a place in a community that respected and valued him. He had built the life he had always dreamed of, and he had helped Emma build hers in the process. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The children grew, the farms prospered, and the years passed in a blur of work and love and family. James was a serious child, thoughtful and careful, with Cole's gray eyes and Emma's stubborn determination. Rose was her opposite, wild and joyful, always laughing, always exploring, fearless in a way that gave Emma heart palpitations but made Cole beam with pride. In 1888, Thomas and Margaret had a son they named William, and the cousins grew up as close as siblings, spending their days running between the 2 properties, learning to ride and rope and work the land. Emma would watch them play and feel grateful for the abundance of blessings in her life, for the way everything had turned out despite the dark times she had endured. One evening, as she and Cole sat on the porch watching the sunset, their children playing in the yard before them, Emma reflected on how far they had come. It had been 6 years since that auction in Cedar Ridge, 6 years since Cole had walked into her life and changed everything. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked him. "Spending all that money to help us, you could have bought a much bigger spread started with more resources. Instead, you gave it all away." Cole took her hand and brought it to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I have never regretted it for a single moment," he said firmly. "That money bought me something far more valuable than land, Emma. It bought me a family, it bought me you. And that is worth more than all the acres in Texas." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the steady beat of his heart. "I love you," she said simply. "I do not think I tell you that enough." "You show me every day," Cole replied, wrapping his arm around her, "in 1,000 little ways. In the life we have built together, in the children we are raising, in the way you look at me when you think I am not paying attention. I know I am loved, Emma, and I hope you know the same." "I do," Emma said. "I really do." As the years continued to pass, their love only deepened. They faced challenges, as all couples do. There were crop failures and harsh winters. There were cattle diseases and equipment breakdowns. There were the normal trials of raising children and managing properties. But they faced everything together, as partners, supporting each other through the difficult times and celebrating together during the good. In 1890, Emma gave birth to their 3rd child, another son they named Daniel. Cole was 40 years old by then, Emma 35, and they decided Daniel would be their last. 3 children felt like the perfect number, and Emma was ready to focus on raising the family they had rather than expanding it further. Thomas and Margaret had 2 more children, daughters named Alice and Catherine, and the Broken Arrow rang with the sound of children's laughter and voices. The 2 families remained close, gathering for Sunday dinners and holidays, working together during busy seasons, supporting each other through life's inevitable ups and downs. James grew into a young man who was the image of his father, tall and strong and steady. He loved the farm and the land, and it was clear he would follow in Cole's footsteps. Rose, true to her nature, was more interested in horses and proved to be a natural rider, able to gentle even the most difficult animals with patience and intuition. Daniel, the baby, was clever and curious, always asking questions and taking things apart to see how they worked. Cole taught all of them to work hard, to value integrity above profit, to treat people fairly and honestly. Emma taught them to read and write, to appreciate beauty, to understand that strength came in many forms. Together, they raised children who were confident and capable, who understood both the value of hard work and the importance of kindness. In 1895, when Emma turned 40 and Cole was 45, they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary. Thomas and Margaret threw them a party at the Broken Arrow, inviting friends and neighbors from all over the county. As Emma danced with her husband under the stars, the same fiddle band that had played at their wedding providing the music, she marveled at the journey they had traveled together. 10 years, Cole said, holding her close as they swayed to the music. It has gone by so fast. The best years of my life, Emma said honestly. Every single one of them. Mine too, Cole agreed, and we have many more ahead of us. I plan to love you until I am old and gray, Emma Matheson, and even then I will not be done. You are already starting to go gray, Emma teased, running her fingers through his hair where silver was beginning to show at the temples. Then I will love you until I am older and grayer, Cole amended with a laugh. The point stands. As the party continued around them, Emma thought about the girl she had been at the auction that day, watching her brother sacrifice everything, feeling hopeless and lost. She thought about the man who had stepped forward and changed everything, the cowboy with storm-gray eyes and a promise to help those in need. She thought about falling in love, about building a life together, about all the moments big and small that had led them to this point. The farm that Cole had saved was now thriving beyond anything Emma had dreamed possible. They had expanded to 300 acres, adding property as they could afford it. They ran cattle and sheep along with their crops. They employed 6 full-time workers and twice that during harvest season. They had built a life of substance and meaning, not measured in wealth but in the richness of relationships and the satisfaction of work well done. The Broken Arrow was equally successful. Thomas and Cole's partnership had proven incredibly fruitful, and the ranch was now one of the largest and most respected in the region. They had weathered the economic panics of the 1890s better than most, thanks to their diversified operations and conservative financial management. They were pillars of the community, known for their fair dealing and their willingness to help neighbors in need. As the years turned into decades, Emma and Cole's love story became something of a legend in Cedar Ridge. People spoke of the mysterious cowboy who had spent his fortune to save strangers, who had given away land worth thousands of dollars without asking for anything in return, who had found love in the process. Young couples would seek out Emma and Cole for advice on marriage, wanting to know the secret of their obvious happiness and devotion to each other. Emma always gave the same answer: respect, partnership, and choosing love every single day, even when it was hard. Cole would add that marrying the right person made all the difference, and then he would look at Emma with such love that it made her heart flutter even after 20, 30, 40 years of marriage. Their children grew up and started families of their own. James married a rancher's daughter and took over day-to-day management of the farm, allowing Cole and Emma to step back a bit and enjoy their grandchildren. Rose married a horse breeder and moved to a ranch about 20 miles away, close enough to visit regularly. Daniel, true to his curious nature, became a teacher and moved to San Antonio, though he came home often. Thomas and Margaret's children also married and had families, and the extended clan grew larger with each passing year. Sunday dinners at the Broken Arrow became grand affairs, with multiple generations gathered around tables pushed together. with children running and playing while adults talked and laughed, with the warmth of family surrounding them all. Cole and Emma grew old together, their hair turning silver, their faces gaining lines and character, their bodies slowing down but their love remaining as strong as ever. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1923, they sat together on the porch of the farmhouse, the same porch where Cole had first told Emma he wanted to give her brother his ranch back, the same porch where he had proposed, the same porch where they had watched their children grow. 40 years, Emma said, marveling at it. How did we get so old? Slowly and then all at once, Cole replied with a chuckle. His voice was rougher now, his movements stiffer, but his gray eyes were as clear and loving as they had been the day she met him. But I would not change a single moment, Emma, not one. Neither would I, Emma said, taking his hand. Their fingers intertwined automatically, a gesture so familiar it was like breathing. Well, maybe I would change some of the earlier parts, the parts before you came along. But everything after that day at the auction has been a gift. You were the gift, Cole said, bringing her hand to his lips in the gesture that had become his trademark over the decades. You and the life we built. I spent my youth alone, thinking that was my lot in life. Then I found you, found us, and discovered what it meant to truly belong somewhere. To someone. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set, painting the Texas sky in shades of gold and crimson. Their grandchildren played in the yard, the latest generation of Mathesons and Brennans, carrying on the legacy of family and love that Emma and Cole had established. The farm stretched out around them, the land they had nurtured and protected and passed down to their children. The broken arrow was visible in the distance, still thriving, still a testament to the partnership between Cole and Thomas that had changed all their lives. Do you remember what you told me that first day? Emma asked. When you explained why you were giving everything away. I said I knew what it was like to lose everything, Cole replied. I said I had made a promise to help others if I ever had the means. You kept that promise, Emma said softly, and in keeping it, you saved more than just our farms, Cole. You saved me. You gave me a reason to hope again, to believe that good men still existed in this world. You showed me what real love looks like. Cole turned to look at her, his eyes shining with emotion. And you gave me a home, Emma, not just a place, but a home, a family, a purpose. You gave me everything that matters. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Emma leaned her head on Cole's shoulder, feeling the weight of 40 years of love and partnership, of struggles overcome and joys shared. She thought about the young widow she had been, facing ruin and despair. She thought about the cowboy who had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had been too hopeless to pray. She thought about the life they had built together, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. For saving my farm, yes, but mostly for loving me. For seeing something worth saving in a broken widow with nothing to offer. You had everything to offer, Cole corrected gently. Strength and courage and a heart big enough to love a wandering cowboy who did not know how to be loved. You taught me, Emma. You taught me what it meant to be part of something bigger than myself. You taught me about family and roots and building something that lasts. They remained on the porch long after dark, holding hands and watching the stars, surrounded by the sounds of their grandchildren's laughter and the evening songs of crickets and night birds. Two people who had found each other in the midst of crisis and desperation, who had chosen to build something beautiful together, who had created a legacy of love that would continue long after they were gone. In 1925, Cole Matheson passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 75, with Emma holding his hand and their children gathered around. His last words were of love for his family and gratitude for the incredible life he had lived. Emma grieved deeply, but found comfort in the knowledge that they had shared 43 years of true partnership, that every day had been a gift they had given each other. Emma lived another 5 years, spending her time surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling stories of the cowboy who had saved their farm and won her heart. She spoke of Cole's kindness and generosity, of his strength and gentleness, of the way he had loved her completely and without reservation until his dying day. When Emma passed away in 1930 at the age of 75, she was buried next to Cole in the cemetery overlooking the valley, their headstones side by side, united in death as they had been in life. The inscription on Emma's stone, chosen by her children, read, "Beloved wife, mother, grandmother." She was saved by love and taught us all what that meant. The farm and the ranch continued through the generations, kept in the family, worked and loved by Mathesons and Brennans for decades to come. The story of Cole and Emma became family legend, told and retold at gatherings, a reminder of the power of selfless love, of the way one act of kindness can change everything, of the beautiful things that can grow from the darkest moments. The house where Cole and Emma had lived, where they had raised their children and grown old together, was preserved by the family, maintained with love and care. The porch where Cole had proposed, where they had sat together through countless evenings, where they had watched their legacy unfold, became a place of pilgrimage for family members seeking connection to their history. And on quiet evenings, when the wind whispered through the prairie grass and the stars shone bright over the Texas plains, it was said you could still feel the love that had lived there, the pure and enduring devotion of a cowboy who had given everything to save a widow's farm and found in return the greatest treasure of all. A love that transcended time, a partnership that had built an empire not of wealth but of family, a story that would be remembered and cherished for generations to come. The legacy of Cole Matheson and Emma Hartwell was not measured in acres or dollars or material success, though they had achieved all of that. Their true legacy was in the example they set of what love could be when built on a foundation of respect, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment. They showed their children and grandchildren that one person's kindness could change the course of multiple lives, that doing the right thing mattered more than doing the profitable thing, that love was not just a feeling but a series of choices made every single day. Years after both had passed, their great-grandson discovered in the attic a leather-bound journal that Cole had kept. In it were entries spanning 40 years, observations and reflections on his life with Emma. The final entry, written just days before his death, read, "I have been thinking about that day at the auction, the day that changed everything. I had gone to Cedar Ridge with no particular plan, just following a rumor of land for sale. I saw the crowd and stopped to see what was happening. I saw a man's face full of determination and sorrow as he prepared to sell his dreams. I saw a woman at the edge of the crowd, tears in her eyes, watching her brother sacrifice everything for her. And I knew in that instant that I was meant to be there. That all my years of wandering and working and saving had been leading me to that exact moment. I bought the ranch not knowing what would come next, only knowing that I had to help. I never imagined I would find Emma. I never imagined I would find home, but I did. And every day since has been a gift I never deserved but am grateful for beyond words. If anyone ever reads this, know that love is worth everything. That helping others is never a waste. That sometimes the smallest decisions lead to the biggest miracles. I came to Texas a lonely cowboy with money in my pocket and emptiness in my heart. I leave this world a wealthy man, not because of land or cattle or material things, but because I loved Emma Hartwell Matheson with everything I had, and miracle of miracles, she loved me back. That is the greatest treasure a man can have. The journal was carefully preserved and became another piece of the family's treasured history, a testament to the extraordinary love story that had begun with a simple act of kindness at a dusty auction in 1882. Cole and Emma's story continued to inspire their descendants, reminding each new generation that love was the most powerful force in the world, that sacrifice and generosity created ripples that spread far beyond what we could see, that choosing compassion over self-interest could transform not just individual lives but entire legacies. The farms they had built and protected continued to thrive, worked by great-great-grandchildren who understood they were stewards of something precious, something built on more than just soil and water and labor. They were caretakers of a dream, of a vision that two people had shared and nurtured and passed down through the generations. The land was important, yes, but what made it truly valuable was the love that had saved it, the sacrifice that had preserved it, the partnership that had made it flourish. And so the story lived on, a testament to the truth that love could conquer despair, that kindness could change destinies, that one cowboy's choice to help strangers could create a legacy that would endure long after he was gone. In the end, Cole Matheson had bought more than just land that day at the auction. He had bought himself a future, a family, and a love that would echo through time, inspiring all who heard the story of the cowboy who gave everything away and gained the whole world in return.